Ah. Hey, it's Jane. It is the night before my bottom surgery. Vaginoplasty with cavity. It's been a fairly anxious day, but that's common for me. Anxiety is something that I've lived with my whole life, so I'm kind of used to it. A little rough, but doing okay. Not as joyous as I really wish I could be, because I've talked to a number of women who've done this, and they went into it with such a great sense of joy, and finally doing it, finally here, finally being a reality. And I've got some trepidation and fear and anxiety, but whatever. I live with that, so you get used to it. So the last time I was talking, at least a long video, I was talking about that. I don't want to say an inner conflict between the male aspect of my personality and the female aspect of my personality, because I don't like the connotation of calling it conflict. There has been conflict. I'll get to that. But I don't like that being the focus, because it doesn't really get to the nuance of having that dichotomous nature. When I was young, I was struggling with gender dysphoria. When did I start struggling with gender dysphoria? I don't know. I think I first kind of sensed it around 10, 11, 12. It really hit me with puberty, but I didn't really understand anything about it, because I was born in 1970, right? So we're talking pre-internet days. My first exposure to what transness was a newspaper article I read in the Toronto Sun in 1985. So I was 15 years old, and it was about a girl transitioning at the Clark Institute, at the Gender Identity Clinic at the Clark Institute in Toronto. It's now called CAMH. But anybody who knows the Clark and their gender clinic knows that it was a disgusting hellhole of a place for trans people. And back then, you didn't have much, right? I didn't know anybody who was trans, and I certainly never spoke to anybody about my inner experiences. So all I had were these newspaper articles, and they were rare in and of themselves, like maybe once every year at the most, maybe 2 every 3 years kind of thing. You'd get a newspaper article about somebody changing gender, or something about the gender clinic, and it was always framed so negatively and so harshly, and so, like, basically you're ruining your life by changing gender. It was an awful time. It was an awful time. And I was brainwashed. I was absolutely brainwashed into believing that my life would be ruined, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't really have any aspirations. I was kind of just a floaty kid who went with just kind of went with the flow of everything in my life. But I knew that if I ever wanted to have a decent income, a job that paid well, that changing gender would basically null that right out. Of course, that was complete bullshit. That's what we were taught through what media there was at the time, but it was ingrained, because back then, when you got those little snippets of information about outliers in reality, in the real life of people, you took it to heart. And I was brainwashed into believing that changing gender would ruin my life, and that there was no going forward in any kind of productive or successful way, and being trans. So everything was internalized, and I was ashamed of my transness, and I hid it very, very well. But by the time I reached 35, it was like I couldn't take it anymore. I had to. It was like ruining my inner life, not changing gender. So I did it. I started off with an orchiectomy, as I said in the earlier one, a sketchy orchiectomy in Philadelphia, and then hormones in 2006, and because of, again, I'm kind of rehashing here, but I'm getting to a point, and because of health. I'm going to say mental health problems, but it was more than that. But let's just say mental health problems. In 2014, I decided to go back to male hormones, and I was back on male hormones for 8 years, and I hated every minute of it. Hated every minute of it. It was an awful experience. It was, I don't know. I think it was a necessary process I had to go through. I'm always second guessing this. Sometimes I think, wow, maybe there's some way I could have stayed on female hormones and sorted out my problems. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because it's what I ended up doing anyways. And then, as I said again, I went back on female hormones in 21. And shortly after that, decided that I wanted to do the bottom surgery. Went through all the hoops. More than 3 years later, here I am. Tomorrow is surgery day. I'm scared and anxious, but I'm fine. I'm doing it. It's all good. And I'm not worried about what happens after. I'm sure what happens after is all going to be totally fine. I know I'm in great hands. I don't really know what the schedule is for tomorrow. I know that I get picked up here at 10 a.m. and that they're going to start intake at 10:30. But what happens after that, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know exactly when the surgery is. My guess is it's going to be after lunch, but I mean, maybe not, maybe earlier. I have no idea, and it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go with the flow. But my feelings leading up to this, and I am really going to put the anxiety on the back burner here, because I experience anxiety in an extremely heightened way, have my entire life. So it's not necessarily something that everyone else can relate to. Some people absolutely. There's lots of people out there who know what severe anxiety is like, but a lot of people who don't experience it. So I'm not going to get into that too much, but I am going to get into the whole male part of my psyche and female part of my psyche thing, because that is something that is really quite unique to me. Not totally unique. There are other people out there who have detransitioned and retransitioned. Fewer who have detransitioned for 8 whole years or a long period of time and then retransitioned. Usually they detransition and then within a relatively short period of time, realizing that detransitioning didn't solve their problems, and retransitioned and solved their problems in other ways. But having spent that 8 years back on male hormones and causing the neuroplasticity to go back to maleness as far as it did, has left me with two voices in my head. You know, there's the voice that's at the fore, which is the one that is the most influenced by the hormones of the time. So the female me is most at the fore because of the female hormones. And when I was back on the male hormones, the male aspect of my psyche was at the fore, and the female aspect was pushed into the background. But having gone back and forth and having really spent some time in both camps before, during the first time, the second time going back, now back in the female's way of thinking, it's easy for me to have that kind of inner dialogue between those two aspects of my psyche. And it's not necessarily a great relationship, as you can possibly imagine. Because it was so ingrained into me that changing gender would ruin my life, I had internalized transphobia. And I experienced that internalized transphobia all the way through the first 8 years of being on female hormones. I didn't want to have anything to do with other trans people during that time. I totally stuck to the lesbian community for friends and community. And I didn't even want to be in the same room with another trans person, because I would see another trans person and they would remind me of my own transness, and I was experiencing internalized transphobia. I didn't know this at the time. I learned this later on, but it was there and it was real and it was deeply ingrained. It was deeply drilled into me by our transphobic culture that goes back so far. Thank you very much, humanity, for being shit. And when I went back to male hormones, I was very angry at myself. I went back to male hormones because my life had become completely unstable, and what seemed to me unmanageable. And I knew that if I went back to male hormones, it would have a stabilizing effect on me. A horrible, terrible effect. And I felt awful, and I just didn't even I didn't care. I lost all caring. But I was very stable, very capable of being productive. I turned my career around. I saved up a shitload of money so I could retire early and go back to university. Like, I accomplished a lot in that 8 years, but at great internal personal cost. And I was righteously pissed off at Jane, because I thought Jane fucked up. And again, still struggling with that internalized transphobia, because I didn't really realize how badly I was experiencing internalized transphobia until I came back onto female hormones the second time, and I had an opportunity to really reflect. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, that's what it was. That's what was really going on. Anyways, so I'm back on male hormones, and I was pissed with my female self, because I thought I had just fucked everything up. You know? I had my shot. I had my shot at being the woman I wanted to be, and I fucked it all up. And I was hugely angry at myself, at Jane. I would even go so far as to say abusive. You know, as a man can be abusive towards a woman, like emotionally abusive towards a woman, you know, I was that way towards myself. And when I decided that it was time to go back onto female hormones, at that time, still, like, I mean, I had just started the hormones, but like literally this is within a couple of days. So nothing's changed yet, right? I'm still fully under the influence of testosterone, and the female hormones haven't even started to kick in yet, but I've started taking them. And I said to myself, to my female self, I said to Jane, okay, I'm willing to go into the background. I'm willing to let go of control. I'm willing to let you come out and take the lead, to be at the fore. And that didn't turn out to be so easy. Now, again, there's that whole diminishing returns thing, right? When it comes to the neuroplasticity, like there's the psychological experience of changing gender and doing it multiple times, and there's also the neuroplasticity aspect of it as well, right? And they're two sides of the same coin, and I think they both need to be understood. So, you know, from a neuroplasticity standpoint, as I discussed last time, you know, there's this diminishing returns thing where, you know, you don't completely lose that other gendered part of yourself. So the male part of me is definitely sticking around a lot more than the first time I changed gender to female, the first time I went on to female hormones. And I kind of thought, shit, this sucks, because here I am, you know, I'm willing, the male aspect, I'm willing to let go. I'm willing to go into the background. I'm willing to let Jane come forward. And it's just not happening as much as I really want it to. And even now, like, we're talking 3.5 years since I've been back on female hormones. Even now, right? Like, I don't do the voice as much as I should, you know? Like, I know the voice. I know the voice training. I did all of that. I was pretty good at it. I was pretty solid. And I'm, you know, now I kind of sort of put a little effort into it, but usually just in public and when I'm around family, I don't bother. And I kind of feel bad. I kind of feel like when I was back on male hormones, I was like super angry and super shitty to myself. And now I'm, you know, that male part of me is willing to let go, but I'm not going into the background, or he's not going into the background, and she's not coming to the fore quite as much as I would like, as she would like, as Jane would like. Hey, Christ. You'd think I had multiple personalities. I don't. This is just, you know, an internal psychological dialogue going on. But something serious is changing right now, which is intriguing, because I'm having bottom surgery, right? So the last piece of my male physicalness is going away. And good riddance. I mean, it's a useless appendage, and I haven't ever needed it. And even when I was back on male hormones, I didn't need it, didn't want it. It had no useful purpose for the last 19 years. And even before, but really over the last 19 years, I have no use for it. So it's going away tomorrow, and I'm going to have a vagina And I'm not going to call it a neo-vagina. It's a vagina. And if there's any bigots watching, fuck you. It's a vagina. So, you know, maybe this is going to make things a little easier for Jane to come more to the fore, for the male me to go more into the background. Don't know. We'll see. It's interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, dating when I'm healed enough. I only date cis guys because I don't know. I like guys, and it's been quite a long time since I've had an actual relationship with a guy, and even then it wasn't particularly healthy. I want a healthy, normal, regular, just plain Jane, you know, relationship with a guy. And I don't know, maybe this is going to make things easier, because having that useless appendage really got in the way. Always bothered me. So, again, I don't really seem to have much of a point. I'm just kind of rambling, which I do. But I thought it was important to get these thoughts out now, because so much is going to change tomorrow, and all of the aftercare is going to be, I don't know, I'll make it dramatic somehow. I promise. I do. It's what I do. So I'll somehow make it all dramatic. But, you know, a lot is changing physically, and I think a lot is going to change for me psychologically as a result of that, and certainly from a relationship standpoint, down the road when I'm healed, things are going to be different. So, yeah, I'm anxious, I'm scared. I don't do well with the medical stuff. But this is so a done deal. I am 110%. You know, this is going down. I need it. And that's kind of where things stand right now. I don't know, what else can I say? Hopefully the audio is okay, because the phone is now a distance away from me, and I don't have a mic, so I don't know. Sorry if it's quiet. I really would like to have better audio. So after this, I will not make a video tomorrow morning, because I'm going to be a bit busy getting ready, because, you know, there's prep stuff you got to do, and I got to pack, and I blah, 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 blah. And when I'm there, I'm sure they're going to keep me very busy. So you're probably not going to see me again until after, but as soon as they leave me alone after the surgery, I'm going to get right in front of the camera so that I can get like first impressions and just kind of be as raw post-surgical as I can be, because I think that would be interesting. So do I have anything more to say now? I don't think I do. And I might not actually have anything more to say about that dichotomous stuff going on, you know, between the old male influences in my psyche and the female influences in my psyche that I want to come more to the fore. I might not say anything more about any of that, because maybe there won't be any point after this. I don't know. That's the thing. Tomorrow, everything changes. Not everything, but I mean, enough changes that it's going to be exciting and new, and maybe none of that psychological baggage will make any difference anymore. We'll see. So I guess maybe I'm going to stop there and say good night. I love y'all, and use my peeps.